my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course, and on today's show, well, first and foremost, I hope you had an amazing weekend. I don't really have any crazy updates. This weekend was like back to basics for me, so nobody asked, but I'm just going to give you a little rundown of what's been going on in my life real quick, and then we'll get into today's show. But I have been really going hard, I would say this whole summer for the most part. I had taken a break from DJing for a while, at least DJing consistently. And this summer I've kind of been back at it, and not as like crazy as I used to be, where I was DJing probably 4 nights a week on top of working full time. But for me, giving up a late night on the weekend and then having to be up to run one of my other businesses, it's been a lot. And I've been all over the place. Last week, I gave a talk gave a talk in the morning in New York, and then and then had a DJ at night in New York. And I literally was just driving back and forth from Jersey to New York basically all day, it felt like. And I just ran myself down. And that's that Sunday I went out and was just, partaking in some summertime fun with some friends. So I hadn't really been giving myself some time to rest. And of course, my body caught up with me and told me, you need to sit your ass down. I got sick this last week, and I really just took it easy this weekend, with the exception of DJing one gig this last weekend. And Sunday, man, this is the irony of being a human being. This is why I bring this whole story up. We know what the fuck we need at the end of the day, particularly if you are an adult and you know what makes you happy at times, and you know what makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel good. And even with that knowledge, it never ceases to amaze me how we just do not listen to ourselves, right? And we just need a constant reminder, because Sunday, I basically unplugged from the world. I took a bunch of naps. I didn't really watch like much TV. I read a lot, which felt really good. I stayed outside a bunch with my dog. I played with my dog a bunch. Like I got shit done around the house that I had been putting off. My house was nice and clean, and like everything was put together. And at the end of that Sunday, I felt like amazing, like a new person. I woke up ready to take on the day, Monday yesterday, and it's kind of set me up for having this like, really amazing week. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, that needs to be like my routine, my habit. Like, really, just have a Sunday where I unplug. And it's like, duh. I've told myself that a million and one times, yet I go off and do a million and one other things only to crash and then to kind of reset like this and realize this is probably what I should be doing every week if I want to have a productive week ahead, right? This is what I should do every Sunday. Just unplug like that, because that's what rejuvenates me, right? That's what makes me ready to take on everything that's going to come at me during the week. And I've had that conversation with myself so many times, and it's just funny how we constantly, as human beings, need that reminder, to do the things that replenish us, that make us happy, and to give ourselves permission to do that. So I bring that up, just to give you a little insight into things that I've been kind of exploring about myself. But I think also, just as like a point of, at times, the world of self-help and wellness and challenging yourself to be better, like, the topics at hand can feel a bit redundant, right? We talk a lot about manifestation or limiting beliefs or healing yourself from trauma, all these different things. And at times it's kind of like, listen, I've already heard that. I figured that part out, or I'm aware of it. I don't need to keep having it like beaten into my mind. But the point is that as human beings, we do need to keep being reminded of things, right? We keep forgetting all that we learned, and then only to have to go and relearn it all over again, right? Or we sort of put it somewhere in the back of our mind. Life happens, and we get away from all of the work that we've done on ourselves. And some of these reminders, and that's why I'm a big fan of like having virtual mentors that you keep going back to, and you listen to their content and you hear their words and you think about it, because it's like these sort of guardrails that keep pushing you back on track when you inevitably, because we all do, like I said, we're all going to kind of begin to drift away from the correct path. Again, it's just life happens. There's so much going on, particularly as you become an adult, you have more responsibilities. It's easy to get pulled in a million and one different directions and kind of forget your own baseline needs, I think, to a degree, right? So I am prefacing that to bring you today's episode, which I'm going to uh, play you this last month's mastermind, the Just Be Social Club, our June mastermind, our June meetup that we had. I just realized that I never shared it, and I usually like to kind of share those for anybody who hasn't been able to get into the group or is thinking about joining the new one that we have going on, which I will post a link in the show notes to the offer, so you can go ahead and check those out if you want to be a part of our second mastermind group, Just Be Social Club, that we're going to be launching in the next week or so. I believe this is the last week for you to be able to sign up for that offer. So I'll put the links in the show notes, all the info, so you can go check that out if you want to be a part of it. Again, this is the last week. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And that forever hold your peace part might actually be kind of true, because I have been rethinking, along with my partner Brenda. We're rethinking kind of how we want to structure all of this out. So the current format that we're using, we may not be consistently using that moving forward. So this is your last chance to kind of be a part of it and be a part of this kind of version that we're doing that I think is really great. But obviously, we're trying to figure out ways to kind of make it scalable, that we can continue doing this on a much larger level. So get in early is what I'm trying to tell you. So again, I'm going to put the links in the show notes with all of the info, and you can check out which package works best for you and all that stuff. You can book your one-on-one with myself and Brenda to get more info. I'll put the link to all of that stuff in the podcast show notes. But again, you have to do it this week. It's the final week, and that's it. We're closing doors on this offer. Now, with that said, I'm sharing this last month's Just Be Social Club, our mastermind. And a lot of the topic is sort of things we've discussed before, of limiting beliefs and kind of getting in your own way and having to force yourself to get out of your own way, right? But I shared a really personal story that I've been holding on to for a while. Like the only people who have really heard this story are my therapist and those that are incredibly close to me. You know, my significant other at the time, who was with me while I was going through this process, and it's something that really jarred my confidence at this point in my life. Right, even though I've accomplished so much and I've been able to manifest so much of what I've wanted in this life, this event, this career opportunity that didn't pan out, really kind of shook me up and really had me put a ceiling on myself, on my own capabilities, and that affected the way that I set goals and the things that I was aspiring for. And I started thinking a lot smaller. So I wanted to share this experience because I want to make it clear that regardless of how much you've accomplished and the people you look up to, like, we're all still fighting the wounds and the old trauma that causes us to feel lesser than or not good enough or unworthy, right? And it's still something that, as much as I can speak about it and as much as I can give tangible advice for how to push back against this, and as much as I still have to constantly do the work, right? Each and every day. I mean, before we get into the episode, I'll leave you with like kind of a last tidbit of something I've recognized in myself. Like, I am getting back out into the dating world, and you know, for me, I'm not at a point anymore in my life where I'm looking to just be doing the random hookups and be hanging out with people just for the sake of hanging out with people. Like, I know what I want in my life. I know what I want at this point in my life, and you know, I want to move forward with the you know, the life that I'm dreaming about, which is starting a family and having all of those things. Right, I'm ready to evolve into that next version of myself. So I am not looking to waste time with anybody who's not on the same page as me when it comes to that, right? Or waste time in situations that put me around people who are not of the same mindset right now. And what I'm recognizing is that even though I know that, even though I know where I am, I know what I deserve, I know the type of person I am, I know the type of life that I live, and you know, all that I've achieved, when looking at prospective partners, sometimes when there's somebody who is uh, maybe impressive as far as like they meet certain standards I might have, or even I look at them and I'm like, wow, they seem to have their shit together. There's a part of me that goes, oh man, they would never date somebody like you, right? And that's that old programming kicking in and bringing me back to like the days of being in my 20s. And because I didn't have my shit together, certain women wouldn't be interested in dating, right? Because if they had a career, they had a job, they had at that point, if they had their own apartment, even if they had roommates, I was still living at home with my parents, and that like kind of took me off of their list of people they would potentially date, right? And that idea and that version of myself, it still lingers in. I'm sure there's like other childhood trauma that goes even further than that, but those ideas still come up in my mind. And I have to check myself, and I think we all have to remind ourselves of just really who the fuck we are, right? Like I have to remind myself, A, I'm a good dude who has done a lot of work to not be somebody who's going to be a toxic partner, and on the alternative to actually, knows what it takes to be a good partner, and to be uh, just open to all of the things that are necessary in terms of having a healthy relationship, right? And outside of that, I do have career success to stand on, right? I'm independent. I've started my own businesses. I'm not trying to like build myself up in this way because it feels weird just listing off accolades. But what I'm saying is I have my shit together, right? I genuinely have my shit together. So why would someone else that I'm attracted to who has their shit together view me as not their equal when in fact I am, right? I'm the only one in that particular situation who's saying I'm not this person's equal, therefore I'm taking myself out of the game and I'm not even going to try, right? So I'm bringing up these examples to again reiterate how we get in our own way, and again how it's consistent work that we have to continue to beat ourselves over the head of really fighting back against these limiting beliefs that cause us to stay in our own bubble and make us get in our own way, and at the end of the day limit what we're capable of, and stop us from getting what we really want in this life. So I just want us all to continue to be aware of that as we begin to set goals, right? Because that was one of the homework, things for this last mastermind, was like really beginning to set bigger goals for yourself and think about what it is that you want in this life. And in order to do that, in order to really be able to give yourself what you want, you have to be unafraid to ask for it, right? You have to be unafraid to ask for something big and know that you are not only capable of it, but you also deserve it, right? And that's where fighting back against those limiting beliefs and not allowing any negative experiences of the past to color, the way that you decide to live your life moving forward, right? And that's something that I allowed myself to do, which we'll talk about with this sort of career situation that didn't pan out. I allowed that negative situation to dictate how big I was going to dream from then on. And I had to really check myself like very recently, and let myself know like, no, you're on this current path you're on right now because you're thinking smaller, right? And there's nothing wrong with the life that I'm living right now. I'm incredibly happy, but I'm also capable of far more, right? And to just settle for this because it's good enough and it makes me happy right now, the reality is it's not going to make me happy forever because I'm not going to be living up to my full potential, right? Eventually, it's going to catch up to me and I'm going to say to myself, I want more out of life. And I've wasted a lot of time by just thinking small and just thinking about what's good enough. So again, it's fighting back against those limiting beliefs in an effort to break out of the sort of ceiling that you're putting on yourself, right? So I'm gonna stop there because I think that's a good kind of preface for all that we're talking about today when it comes to today's episode with the Just Be Social Club. Again, this was from our June mastermind, our June meetup that we did. If you want to be a part of this new group that we are putting together, all the links are going to be in the show notes. You can book a one-on-one session. You have to do it this week. book a one-on-one with myself and Brenda. We'll go through all of what we're going to be working on in the mastermind group, the program that we have set up. We'll talk to you and figure out if your goals align with what we do here in this group. And if so, we'll give you the info of how you can be a part of it. But again, this is the last week, and it's speak now or forever hold your peace type of stuff. Now, with that said, let's get into the conversation that I had last month with our Just Me Social Club. And we'll do it as a part of our Gente segment. Gente.
Man, it's good to see some of you guys. I feel like I haven't seen some of y'all in a minute, so it's nice to see your faces. I'm really, I don't know, I've been really reflective lately. I feel like, I don't know, I think you guys were like filling in, some of you guys were being filled in on like kind of what we were doing last time. But the last time we met, it felt like everybody was kind of in this weird energetic space of like being a little bit, life was life, and I guess would be the term we've been throwing around. So I don't know about y'all, but it feels a little bit lighter these days right now for whatever reason. So I'm excited to hopefully, you know, most of us, if not all of us, have kind of moved past that weird little phase that we were going through. But for this month, for today, I know last time we had the homework of goal setting. I know some of you guys weren't here for that, but I think we're getting to a place now where we've been meeting up for a minute, and I think it's important to kind of have some sort of direction into where we're going. And I think we've sort of built up collectively this awareness about ourselves, that I think we're now in a position to begin to kind of start setting some tangible goals and really creating plans towards executing them, and kind of having a timeline in place to get to where we want to be. So that's kind of going to be the goal of from now moving forward till the end of the year. And I think that's kind of going to be the ending point of the regular meetups, would be the end of the year, almost like we'll have our graduation, you know, and kind of be fresh going into the new year, and have hopefully shift in a mindset or develop some habits that get us closer to where we want to be, and more in a place of like fulfillment, and what I'm calling like filling your heart, you know, at the end of the day. And we'll get into the homework, and we'll check in with everybody as we usually do. But one thing I want to kind of touch on today that I'm having a realization around as of late. What's up, Cedric? I'm having a realization. It's almost like the veil has been lifted from my eyes for whatever reason as of late. And I'm realizing how I gave into limiting beliefs so much over the course of probably the last 2 years or so. And I've kind of been in my bubble, and I've been working hard and doing all the things, but it's almost like as I was doing it, I didn't completely believe that I could make all of those things come true. And I'm not sure if any of you guys can relate to that. You know, obviously we talk about manifestation, all of these different things, but like the idea of manifestation, and when you're really getting to a place of like being able to make shit happen, is when you genuinely believe it as if it's happening right now, you know, and you genuinely believe you're that person that you're striving to be, and you know, believing that you can get there. And I think for me, even in setting my goals, I was thinking really small, where I was almost giving myself an out. I was sort of giving into I don't know, the part of me that is still that like kid in his parents' basement, not sure of himself, right? That still exists. And that's somebody that I've been kind of working on, having that kid grow up a little bit, and reflecting on that. And, you know, even, and I'll share something with you guys, just because, you know, we were a group that's been getting together for a minute. But when I left the Breakfast Club, it was like I had the world at my fingertips at that point. I was getting ready to launch my first podcast, and I was one of the first ones that they were launching. So all the attention was kind of on me, and you know, it was exciting for everybody. And literally, like the same week that I announced that I was leaving the Breakfast Club, I get a producer from Spotify reaching out to me that they're looking for a third host for their morning show. And I'm getting, somebody reaching out about working on a television show, and then somebody wanted to cast me for another television show. So all these things hitting me at one time. And I remember kind of thinking like, yes, this is everything I've been working for, and I can't lose. One of these things is bound to happen. And what kind of happened periodically throughout that time with Spotify, it was like they kept having me re-audition. And I just kind of had this vision in my mind of like, either way, like not either way, that this is going to be my thing, right? I'm not only leaving the Breakfast Club, but now I'm also kind of becoming their competition. I'm going to be a part of another morning show, and I'm going to be proving all the people who are hating on me wrong, and all these different things, right? I was looking at it from a place of emptiness where I was looking for that validation. And the process turned out to be far harder than I could have ever expected. And it was, I would audition, and it was supposed to be like, all right, we're gonna let after this month of auditions, and they would put me up against somebody else back and forth. And then I was like, okay, we liked you better than that person. Now we're gonna put somebody else, and they kept extending, and this went on for probably 6 to 7 months until it just went completely dark. I got ghosted, and didn't hear anything about it. And the whole time, all of those negative thoughts that I've ever had in my life began creeping in, where it was, the reason that they're not giving you the gig right now is because you're just not good enough. You're not talented enough to be in a position like this one. And every other negative thought that kind of came across. And it was like little by little eating away at my confidence. It was almost like a really toxic relationship, right? And then, I don't hear anything probably for almost 2 months. And then I just see a public post about how the show got canceled entirely, right? And even though obviously there's a lot of shit going on behind the scenes that had nothing to do with me, where the show was on the verge of not even existing anymore, I think at that point, my entire, view of myself based upon where I thought the trajectory of my career was going to go, it was shattered. And then, I don't hear anything about this other audition that I went on, and, months go by, nothing. And then the TV show thing, where it's like, literally we're still in like almost a 2-year process at this point of dragging it out. So like all things where I was like, one thing's bound to work out, nothing worked out. And even though I have this podcast, and even though I am moving into a space of being financially free, it's like that little kid inside of me that was hurting and always felt like he wasn't good enough was still lingering around. And I noticed that my goals began to get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? I set a financial goal, and then, eventually I start telling myself like, well, do you really need to make that much money? Why don't you could be happy with this amount of money, right? And that is true, but it was almost like I was diminishing my own capabilities, and I was playing small ball, right? And anybody who was here for that interview we did with Lucy King, her talking about kind of the first thing you need to decide is like what you feel like you're worth, and that is what you're going to kind of use as your light. And I'm saying all of that to say, I think that brought me to a place where I wasn't completely doing myself a service and living up to who I'm capable of being. And I think that all of us sort of fall into that, right? I think that's where the lack of fulfillment comes from. That is where the, self-doubt, the lack of confidence, all of these different things come from the idea of just like feeling like we're not enough, and then giving ourselves an out, to kind of say, like, oh, gave it my best shot type of thing, or to not hold ourselves accountable for not doing what we need to do, right? And now when I talk about the veil being lifted, I'm walking into like what I feel like a new season of my life, where I'm stepping into being the person I was always meant to be, and stepping into confidence, and stepping into owning a room and taking up space, and not minimizing myself for anybody, and knowing my value, and accepting nothing less than it. Like I even went out and like just bought a whole new wardrobe this week, like spent more money than I probably should have, but it was just like this symbolism, and I like cleaned out my closet, and I have a bunch of bags I'm taking to Goodwill. And it was just like, I'm taking over this new phase of my life in every single way, and be it how I show up to friendships that I want, or potential relationships, or career opportunities. It's like, I have a baseline, and I'm not accepting anything less. If you can't meet me there, I'm sorry, I'm not going back in life. And I think that is something that has completely changed my mood for like the last, few weeks or whatever it is. Like, I'm genuinely living in a place of fulfillment, and living in this place of like calm right now, knowing that I have everything I need. I'm capable of doing everything I want to do, and anything that I genuinely want to do. I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. We're just waiting for the time that it actually ends up presenting itself, right? And because of that, I can already see how my interactions with people are drastically different, right? The type of people that are finding themselves into my circle are drastically different people, right? Because I'm just giving off this different energy of knowing I'm getting to exactly where I want to be, and I'm also very specific and aware of where I want to be. So that's something I kind of wanted to share, because I think we talk about self-awareness, and I see it in all of you as we've been meeting up, where it's kind of just like little by little you're recognizing more about yourself and maybe understanding yourself a little bit more. And maybe even if you're not taking all of the actions that you want to right now, it's like even just being aware of some of the tendencies that you might want to change. Like that's a huge thing to kind of keep in mind. And for me, that it all starts with that self-awareness, and then now moving into a phase of saying, this is the version of who I want to be. And how does that person act, right? How does that person speak? How are they when they enter a room? What do they demand when they're worthy of it, right? What is the type of respect, the type of attention, the type of salary, whatever it is that type of person lives? Like that's who I am right now. I'm redefining myself. I'm rebranding myself, right? In that same way, and making sure that everything I do is through the lens of living as that person, as that version of myself that I want to be. And that is obviously a journey, but it's like, man, once you begin to correct some of the negative mindset and start replacing it and forcibly replacing it with the positive stuff, you feel drastically different. Like, last thing I'll say on that is I have this loop in my mind that always happens, where if I have like a down moment, something in my brain says, you got to get your life together. I could have my life together completely, but I still tell myself, you got to get your life together, right? And that's old programming from like years ago, when I felt like everybody was passing me by and I didn't have a dollar to my name and I'm still in my parents' basement. And that's where that loop is coming from. And then now recognizing that, and whenever that loop comes in, I hit it back with telling myself really who the fuck I am, right? And who I'm going to be, and the person that I want to be. And it's just that conversation that's happening. And I am noticing little by little that new version of myself is becoming louder and louder. The voice of that version of myself is becoming louder and louder in my mind. And it's again just awareness, and then creating that habit that as soon as a negative thought comes in, you're hitting it back with a positive one, right? And I hope this doesn't sound too like I don't know, fucking hokey or anything like that, but it's something that's been working for me as of late, and I feel drastically different as a result of it. And I've noticed my interactions with people are drastically different. So it's like it is a real tangible thing. And it's something I want to share with everybody, because I think we're all kind of at a point where we're trying to maybe redefine this next chapter of our lives. And I think it's important to begin to kind of have those conversations with yourself, and define exactly who that person is that you want to be, right? I think that's sort of the next stage of the things that we're talking about when it comes to goal setting and creating a long-term goal for the rest of the year. It's being as specific as possible, right? Because that's when your mind begins to look for the opportunities and gives you reminders of things, right? It's not about saying, I just want to be a better person. It's like, well, what does a better person actually look like? What do they sound like? What does their everyday life look like? What do their interactions with others look like? You have to be very, very specific to train your brain so that it's like, for me, I lack confidence in almost every other area of my life, aside from when I feel like I'm in a power position or I have to lead something, right? So if the mailman is coming by, and like I'll give them the most awkward hello ever, or I'll just sit in my car, or sit by the door waiting for them to go by, so I don't actually have to have an awkward conversation with them, and that's like my own social anxiety, my own whatever it is, my own lack of confidence. And even like this last week, when I noticed I'm feeling that feeling like, oh, you have a couple minutes, you could probably hide before they see you, forcing myself to stay there and give them the good morning greeting. And if it's a fucking awkward conversation that I stumble through, whatever it is, but I've pushed myself to do something out of the norm. I've pushed myself to do something that the evolved version of myself would do, right? And it's little things like that, and having the awareness of knowing exactly who I want to be then allows me to pick up on those situations and act accordingly. So that's my little spiel that I wanted to kind of open up to y'all about, in regards to a lot of the work that I'm doing and that we're doing collectively.
All right, so that was the majority of our conversation from the Just Be Social Club in June, there's obviously different parts to the meetup itself. That was more so kind of my talk that I usually do at the beginning of it. I usually cut out some of the more personal things that the people in our group share, as far as like the updates on their life and the homework that we've been given and all those different things. Just for privacy, I want to also reiterate, like, this group is about connecting with other like minds and having a safe space to kind of share all that you're going through. So I don't share the entirety of our conversations, just kind of the chunks that let you know kind of what we're talking about that day. Now, again, this is our original group. We are opening up the second one. This is the last week to sign up for it. I believe we have, I want to say it's one slot left. It might be two slots, but we're closing it this week. In the show notes of this podcast, I'm going to reiterate, you can click a link. I'm going to put the link in there, and you will be taken to a calendar link that allows you to pick a time that works for you, and we'll schedule a one-on-one call with yourself and me and Brenda. Hopefully, she could make it as well. My partner in this, who also is one of the coaches, and we'll just go over the idea of what we're looking to do with this social club, as far as what you can expect to get out of it, and also talk about where you are in your life. Just make sure it's a good fit for you. So if you are interested, this is the last week. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Like I said, this is the last time it's going to look like this as we begin to scale it to, begin to bring this offer to more and more people. So get in now while we've been at the ground floor. Again, I'm going to put the link to the show notes. You click the link to schedule your one-on-one with us this week, and that will allow you to know if this is a good fit for you, and then we can move forward. But again, we have like two slots, I think, left. It might be one, but after that, we are closing the doors, and that's it for the next Just Be Social Club. So keep all that in mind. If this sounds like something you're interested in, if you want to just be constantly surrounded by people who are of a growth mindset, you want to learn how to, get more out of life and get what you want out of life, right? The idea is filling your heart. Like, how do you get to a life of fulfillment and real happiness, and peace, right? Because that's what all of that brings. So if you're searching for that in life, click the link in the show notes, schedule your one-on-one, and we'll figure out if this is a good fit for you. Now, with that said, let's tie everything we talked about in that mastermind in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusions Stew. Time for conclusions stew. All right, so in that June mastermind, I shared a story that's been really close to me, that I've kind of kept close to the heart. I think I've probably danced around it a bit in previous podcast episodes or conversations, but I never dove into it that in depth, And obviously, I had to cut out certain names and things of that nature, just for the fact of, I don't want to put potential business relationships at risk because of this conversation, right? I have to kind of protect that as well. But I think it was important for me to share that because it's something that I've had to really get over as of late. And again, like, I always like to remind everybody as you listen to this, like, and as you maybe are inspired by some of the things that I'm saying, or you put some of the pieces of advice that I give into action, like, you're getting this information from an imperfect person, myself. Just like you, I am on this same exact journey of trying to figure out this fucking thing called life, right? And I never want to come at you from a place of saying, I have it all figured out, right? Like, the reality is, even as I am doing this mentoring and this coaching, I hire other mentors and coaches. I pay for those services. I pay for programs. I buy the books, right? Because there's still so much for me to learn, and I'm still trying to figure it out, right? Some of my ideology will change. It always is changing, right? It's ever evolving. Some of the things I wrote about in my book, I no longer feel exactly that way. And I've learned and I've had experiences in life that have kind of adjusted certain thought processes. So the next book will have things that maybe contradict some of those thoughts, right? So it's always as a reminder. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you're not alone in this journey. I want to let you know that like, while we're, here and I'm trying to help people better themselves, and maybe I've had other experiences that you can learn from that you haven't had yet, or breakthroughs that you haven't had yet, and I can share my experience to help you get there as well. We're on this journey of figuring out this thing called life together, right? And and I would never want anybody to put me on some sort of pedestal as somebody who has it all figured out, somebody who has everything, or whatever it might be, right? Just remembering that you and I are the same, and we're in this together. And if I figured something out, you damn sure can figure out that thing for yourself as well, right? Like I just want to humanize all this. Because again, my biggest gripe, and I say this all the time with wellness and self-help, everybody makes it seem like they have it all figured out. Now they're coming to you from like this perfect and completely enlightened place. And sure, they may have figured something out. They may have figured a lot of things out, but they're not perfect individuals. It's not, to get to where they are, be it spiritually or career wise, like it's not impossible for you. They're not any different than you. They're not any more special than you. They've just taken the time to dive into things maybe a bit deeper than you or I have just yet, right? And I just want to keep reiterating those things and remind people like we're all on this journey together. You are not alone. Don't feel bad. Don't shame yourself, right? And that's why I share things like this, because even as I've developed, like I call myself a master manifester, and I genuinely believe that I can put into action any of the things that I really want. And I've proven that to myself time and time again. There are still times where I fall short and I don't get exactly what I want, or things don't pan out the way that I had planned, or pan out the complete opposite of that. And I'm left trying to figure out, what the hell to do next, and pick up the pieces, right? That's life. It's going to be a part of it. If that's happened to you, understand that that's happened to all of us. And it doesn't mean that you should just give up and stop chasing things because this didn't work out. It just means this one thing didn't pan out the way that you thought it would. And you have to look for the lesson there, right? And for me, that lesson came later as I allowed that event to kind of shift and more so put a dent in my confidence, and then shift my mindset away from truly living out, life to the best of my ability, right? And making sure I'm pushing myself to become better. Instead, that event made me kind of go inward and create this bubble of sort of living this life of everything's good enough, right? And instead of really trying to get to my full potential. And now that I've worked through that, I've realized that I'm putting limitations on myself, right? And again, I reiterate that to give you some grace, like to remind you to give yourself some grace, because I'm somebody who considers myself a high achiever. I've done a lot, I've achieved a lot, I've accomplished the majority of the things that I've set out to do. And every time I set a goal, I feel like for the most part, I've gone out and done it in some way, shape, or form. And even with that, I still have times where I get in my own way. So I want to remind you of that so you don't beat yourself up when you inevitably do the same, right? It's human nature. We all do it. And that's why self-awareness and really having conversations with yourself, and reflecting to allow yourself to see, oh, wow, this is something I'm doing that is affecting me negatively. It's not helping me get to where I want to be. Now I need to correct it. Now I need to dig deep and figure out why it's getting me to that place. Why is it bringing up these emotions, these limiting beliefs? Why is it bringing up my self-doubt? And then how do I move past that so I can really begin to move on to the next chapter of my life, and really begin to realize my full potential in this life, right? And not just think small. So again, I'm just reminding you that we're all on this journey together, and to give yourself some grace if something like this has happened to you, or you find yourself in a place of self-doubt, or not knowing what's next. Like, we have all been there. I'm right there with you. And I just want to give you that reminder. And it's important as we begin to start goal setting, right? Because that's where we are in the Just Be Social Club currently. And as you begin to, kind of goal set, if you're sort of following along, just thinking to yourself and asking yourself, am I dreaming big enough? Right? And that's an important thing. I think we often remember. It's like your dreams aren't meant to be practical, right? Now, obviously, they have to be like realistic in the realm of the world that we exist in, where there's gravity and we all end up dying at some point, things like that, right? But you have to challenge yourself to dream a bit bigger than even you think you're capable of, right? That's where growth happens when you stretch yourself and you reach out for something that seems like it's just beyond your grasp. That's kind of where your goals and your dreams should live, right? Your dreams shouldn't seem like it's this easy, tangible thing. It should seem like it's a little bit hard, a little bit far-fetched, right? But that it's still doable in some way, shape, or form. You could still figure it out. It should scare you a little bit, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So all things I'm trying to reiterate and things I'm trying to get you to push past as far as some of the beliefs that we've developed as far as our own limitations or self-worth or things like that. So I hope that this was beneficial for y'all. And again, this is the last week. There are 2 slots remaining. 2 people will get in to the Just Be Social Club, the second iteration of it, our mastermind group. And you have to do it this week. Links are in the show notes for you to book your one-on-one session where we can discuss what the plan is, what we're doing with this group, and see where you're at and know if it's a good fit. And then you can go ahead and book whatever package works for you. But you have to do that this week. So the link for that to book your one-on-one is in the show notes. And then I'll also put the information about the different memberships that we have available, just so you are aware. Okay. But again, 2 slots available. Only 2 people are going to be able to get into this. 2 more people. And we're closing out after this week. Speak now or forever hold your peace. If you are searching for community, if you are searching for guidance in your life, if you feel like something is missing, if you feel like you are lacking fulfillment, purpose, or just an outlet to express yourself, this is for you. All right. The Just Be Social Club. That's what we're all about. That's what we are building. So again, this is the last week. Links are in the show notes. 2 slots left. This is your last chance. All right. Now that's it. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I will catch you on Thursday for our Thursday Trends episode. Until then, stay safe and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.